Welcome to Relationship Mastery, a podcast for those who want to learn how to master the art of creating happy, healthy, and loving relationships. Please join me, Adey-Jones, and my co-host, Barry Selby, each Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific for a lively and informative conversation on everything to do with relationships. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's show. How are you, Barry?
Good. Looking forward to an interesting conversation again, or as always.
Other people find it as interesting as we do.
We hope so.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about giving second chances. And we did a show a while ago about forgiveness of others and forgiveness of self. This is
Yes.
about forgiveness. This is about, if somebody has done something that is either hurt you or gone against your values or whatever it is, it's really, so you can forgive and not give somebody a second chance. But this is about actually forgiving and giving somebody a second chance, because there's no point in giving second chances if you haven't forgiven, because all you're going to do is beat the person up. So forgiveness is the first part of this, which we did, as I say, a few weeks ago. But definitely second chances. This is a whole other subject.
Oh, yes.
When not to give second chances.
We'll speak back on the forgiveness thing for a second. What we said, I think we said it in that episode, I'm sure we did, was about when we forgive. It's not about forgiving and forgetting, but it's about forgiving and letting yourself off the hook. And second chances isn't necessarily based upon it. You can only do that after you forgive somebody, because sometimes second chances are just like you want a do-over sort of thing. So, but in the context of forgiveness, it's a option, not a requirement, but an option to give someone a second chance to step up to a different level than they may have done before. Because one of the things to talk about forgiveness and in this work is that we are changing our perception and seeing things a little differently. And when somebody may have blindly, inadvertently, stupidly done something to us by mistake that they wish they could have changed and done differently, when we forgive and forgiveness work, it's kind of like we say, you know what, I'm willing to go and try this over again, start over a different way. Now, just to be clear, when it's about giving your ex a second chance who may have cheated on you or something else, unless it's really clear that's worth doing. So it's not an automatic, by the way. This is very much you decide what you want to do with this. But just saying it's an option we can play with, and we'll talk about it in this episode.
Yeah. Well, so for me, when I think about second chances, I do think, and maybe forgiveness is not the right word, but I do think that you have to at least wipe the slate clean of grievances.
Yes.
If you are going to give somebody a second chance, it's, what do they say? Sort of, oh gosh, I'm blanking. I'll remember in a
Once
minute.
bitten, twice shy.
No, it's more like sort of, a politician said it the other day. It's about verify and
Trust and verify.
trust and verify. So
Yes.
meaning, so what I meant by that is it's you don't have to forget what happened, but you have to let go of the grievance of it to fully be present for a second chance, is what I'm trying to say. So when I say, the first stage is either forgiveness or moving on beyond it, but you can't. And I will use the example of, say, your partner, your spouse, or whatever cheated on you. What I'm saying in that situation is to say to somebody, okay, let's try again, and then continue to keep dragging up the past and using it to berate and let your frustration and anger out, is not giving it a second chance. I'm not saying that you don't have every right to those feelings, but those have to be, and it doesn't mean that you're not going to occasionally go there at times, but a second chance is where you're coming in with good intentions to really give this relationship a second chance, meaning a new place to grow from, to move beyond. It doesn't mean that you've forgotten and very hurtful behavior, but it means that you're not going to just keep dragging it up and using it to sort of bash somebody around the head with.
Totally.
It feel better. So
Yeah.
I also think that there's positives and there's negatives to both, as we always say. And some of the positives of giving a second chance to somebody is because, none of us are without fault. None of us have not made a mistake that we regret and wish we could take back. So there is so much potential for a relationship improving if a mistake has been made and if amends have been made and there's a chance to do it over, to do a do-over and to do it differently this time. So that is one of the major positives to giving somebody a second chance. Some people just like, nope, 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 they blew it, they did it, that's it, never again. And they might be missing out on an incredible relationship.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a quote, there's a sort of quote, or some vernacular phrase I remember hearing about, it's never too late to make a first impression. Is that thing about that sometimes people sort of meet someone in the first count. I actually did it with a neighbor recently. Is that I totally sort of stepped on her toes, so to speak, by just totally not listening and not being present to her. I was totally distracted. That I went up to her a couple of days later and said, can we have a do-over? Can we start over again? And we've now become good friends, and it's really worked out well because I did choose to ask for a, quote, second chance. Because it's things that we do. And I'm not sure I'll tell a bit later on about a second chance that didn't go quite that way.
Those two.
So, yeah. So the thing about this is really it's not saying, again, when we talk about these in our conversations, we're not saying it must be a certain way. We're offering possibilities and opportunities. And yes, I know for sure that there are times in my experience myself where if I hadn't offered a second chance to somebody in friendship, in business, in relationship, I would have missed out massively.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely knowing that it is with wisdom and with self-awareness, okay to give someone a second chance. It tends to be much more positive and successful. Not always, but
Yeah,
tends to be.
yeah, I was just going to say that too. I have a lot of my clients. They'll work with me, and they'll second guess their relationship. They'll second guess, because often, as I said, most of my clients are people that have suffered from codependency or have been in narcissistic relationships, and they'll often say, you know, should I give them another chance? Should I go back? Should I this? And my question, rather my answer is always, hey, go back as many times as you need because you there's even when you so-called give a second chance and it doesn't work out. I'm sorry, it does work out because what it's done for you is either because
Yeah,
there's a gift in both ways. One is the gift is that you've allowed yourself to have compassion and humility, knowing that we also make mistakes. You've given that person a chance to see if they can make amends and the relationship can be improved. And as we just mentioned, many relationships can be greatly improved upon with second chances. But even if it doesn't work out and the person resorts to going back into some behaviors, i.e., say you've been with somebody that cheated, and they said it was just the one time, and you feel like, well, there was all these mitigating circumstances, and you're like, I'm prepared to give this person a second chance, and then you
right.
find out, oh, apparently not, they're cheating again, and this is a well, at least you've learned something, and you can walk away knowing for sure that you gave it your best and that you did in fact take another look. You did give this person a second chance, and for whatever reason they couldn't or wouldn't agree to the terms of the relationship, and so you can actually walk away freer than if you just done it the first time. So to me there are no negatives in that sense. It's to just keep your wits about you. Don't go in blindly trusting, but also know that there's something to be learned by having a second look. We call it a second look rather than a second chance.
Absolutely. The second chance, yes, it can be third, fourth, fifth chances too.
Yeah.
But again, with consciousness, with awareness, because this thing with saying, just turn the other cheek and let somebody do something, like, no. But to be consciously aware, and that's what I say, that not forgiving and forgetting, being what happened before it didn't work. Not to say you should harp on it or be like looking for it, but know when the person you're with is having a do-over, for the sake of one better word, that as long as they're not repeating the same mistake again, which is going to be obviously a clear indication they're not changing, that there's an opportunity to go a different direction, and the opportunity for improvement is vast. And I've been in the case as I mentioned, my neighbor, I've definitely had opportunities where I've had a second, sometimes third chance to do something and still messed it up. And also where I've done second or third chance, the other person didn't meet me there. So there's always different permutations and variations on this that can't guarantee it's going to work every time. But it's truly the internal process of how you feel when you do either give someone a second chance or you're given a second chance. How you choose to treat that, how you choose to treat yourself.
Yeah, and as you're talking now, I'm thinking it's what we always say. We teach people how to treat us.
Oh,
So if
yes.
we're blindly going, all is forgiven, it's fine, and we do those second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, whatever it is, chance with no consequences, no guidelines, no guardrails, then we really are just we're basically just being codependent. We're just basically allowing
Yes.
somebody to walk all over us. And that really isn't a second chance, actually. That's just the floodgates are open of like, I have no boundaries. You can come back in and do whatever you want to me. So we're not talking about those. That's not a second chance. The second chance or third chance, whatever it is an opportunity for growth and for learning. And as we know, sometimes certain behaviors are so ingrained that they can change and the person wants to change. I'm not talking about a personality disorder or something like narcissistic personality disorder where, there isn't somebody isn't willing to self-reflect, isn't willing to change, is so delusional about their damaging behavior that they have no incentive to change. I'm talking about somebody that has some ingrained habits that they recognize are not helpful in their relationships. They're not helpful in their relationship to themselves. They're getting in the way of them living a happy, healthy life. But sometimes those behaviors can't change overnight. And to have that awareness and not the expectation and not be like, you said you'd never do that again and now you've gone and done it again. I mean, we've got to look at what it was. Did they, does the punishment fit the crime? I think is what I'm trying to say here. Is
Yeah.
sometimes we have such an expectation or such this is the one chance you're going to get and don't you blow it, and then and then they do it and then you're like, it's blown. Well, take a step back for a minute. Can you turn on a dime? Is some of your negative behavior able to stop overnight because somebody's given you a second chance? So it's not to take advantage of another person, but just, I think what I'm trying to say is just be realistic.
I think you made that point very clear.
Okay, good.
Yeah. The thing I want to say on this, and for me, it's this journey of there's Lisa Nichols has a term about relationships are like gifts wrapped in sandpaper. The idea being is that we tend to become friction smooth by other people, especially in romantic relationships. And some of this growth, this refining, this smoothing happens through friction that is not necessarily positive. So understanding this conversation about second chances, yes, we're talking about the big stuff about, if you can give someone a second chance to come back into your life and be a partner again when after they did something horrendous to you, whatever that was. But also when we make mistakes in a relationship, we say the wrong thing, or we forget, we don't show up on time, we break an agreement with our partner, to be consciously aware that we did it. One thing, because if we can be owning up to it before our partner notices, we're so far ahead of the game.
Mm-hmm.
But understanding that second chances are oftentimes not to be presumed, first of all, but also to be owned up to the fact, realize I didn't, I said I'd pick you up and I got there late and I apologize. I want to fix that. Can we do something different next time? We set up new rules, new paradigms to make it work. The key being is that, first of all, if you're the one that's hoping to get a second chance, be aware that you need a second chance. Like, be aware of what you did do the way you wanted to do it the first time, so you can change.
Mm-hmm.
So this is part of the work, is being self-aware.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and again, it's that the range of transgressions, whatever we want to call it, that you're, doing or mistakes or whatever you want to call it. But, I'm thinking about things like, infidelity or, if your partner's like, had an affair or something like that. That things like that, and we've done a show on trust before, but when trust has been broken, and there's a big difference between, and I do want to mention this, if somebody's had a one-off affair and it was short-lived and they couldn't live with themselves and they told you about it or whatever it was, and there were so many circumstances, the marriage or the relationship was going through a tough time, whatever, that's something that you can look at. But if somebody has, for whatever reason, been somebody that has cheated throughout the whole relationship, especially a long-term relationship, and they
Yeah.
have been able to compartmentalize so and justify that behavior so well and keep it hidden from you for a number of years, that's something you have to look at. It's,
Absolutely.
that sort of behavior, unfortunately, does not change. It just doesn't. It's as much as the person might say they will, if they have justified it, guaranteed there's going to be a circumstance again. Is, oh, my wife was a bitch to me, or my husband didn't do this, and therefore I'm justified in doing so and so. If they justified it in the past, they're going to continue to find those times or those justifications to keep acting out that behavior, because they are so capable, as I say, of compartmentalizing, and it doesn't affect them. So
No.
there's a big difference between forgiving, in my mind anyway, it's just my mind, a one-off affair and giving a second chance, um, than looking at a behavior that is really ingrained and has been for many, 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 many years. Those are the situations where I think you really just have to sort of be honest and just say, really, is the second chance really going to change that behavior or not? So I don't know how you
On
feel
that,
about
yeah. Well, the thing for me on that is that the piece that comes up for me is that how do I say this, that when someone does a aberration behavior, for the sake of argument, for using that word, is that when you're the person who's been wrong, so to speak, it is yes, it's absolutely important to be aware of what's driving them, how they're doing it. But if they're using the excuse that you aren't being sexual with them, or you're never around for them, whether it is they're doing it, but they're not asking you about it or working with you on that subject, they're just simply going and do something different as a revenge action, so to speak, or as a justification,
it. Hmm.
you're in the wrong game.
Hmm.
Because, and I mean game in the sense of the fact is that the person who is justifying what they're doing, quote, wrong, because of what you're not doing for them,
Hmm.
rather than coming to you with the issue about what you're not doing for them, they're using some other escape, whatever it is they're doing. There's a whole, there are layers of things to work on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, have a conversation with your partner. Let's start there.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm feeling a little frustrated. I feel like I need attention,
Yeah, exactly. So
but
you face your partner in the sense, you know.
exactly. And so what I was also going to say is, just back to that situation. So,
Yes.
so say that you have had an affair and it was a one-off and it's not something that you are proud of or want to repeat, or and you really love your partner and you want to stay with your partner. Again, this is something that, then your partner has given you the so-called second chance we're talking about. Um, to also know that as much as they have given you this second chance, they are their intention is to let go of the past and rebuild from this point moving forward. Trust is a big one, and that does take time. And if you have the expectation of, well, you know, you took me back, you should just trust me. It's like, no, that doesn't work. It's just because you've
No.
been given a second chance, or the relationship has been given a second chance, put it that way, there's a lot of work to be done, a lot of trust to be rebuilt, and communication. And as you said, you know, coming to your partner and saying, I am feeling frustrated about this, or whatever it is. So that second chance isn't just the lever that you flip and it all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're back to, where we were. It's a process, and that second chance is really a second relationship. It's going to be different.
Yeah,
It's going to,
absolutely.
and hopefully it's going to be improved, so that you don't find yourself going into those behaviors or that behavior that jeopardized your relationship.
Oh yeah, that trust thing. That's one of the biggest um, disruptors in relationships that doesn't work when people don't know how to rebuild trust because they think it's going to be instant on and it's not. We've done an episode before about this, about trust and agreement keeping, about so key they have to rebuild trust incrementally. It's not something you just it's a given.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about that scenario where someone cheated and the other person doesn't know what to do with that. Their trust has been violated. And you can't just go back and say, I'll never do it again. It's fine. Let's have an instant trust again. It's like, no, you have to earn their trust again. This is the part of the work,
Mm-hmm.
is that having a second chance is like, great, your second chance. Don't screw it up. Be willing to actually take the steps to rebuild the connection, rebuild the trust, rebuild the intimacy, rebuild those things that have been violated or been stepped on that caused the problem in the first place. We tend to oftentimes think that it's like we're done, we're okay, we moved over it, we got over it, we're all good. Like, not necessarily going to, because one thing we talked about, we'll keep talking about, is having conversation with your partner, being in um, a dialogue with your partner so that you can sense where the gaps are, where the issues are, where you can work to change the relationship in a better way so you can be more trusting, more open, more trustable by your partner. That's where the real work is. It's not an instant fix. So do the work and be willing to be humble in that process.
Yeah, yeah, and and even if you think it's your partner made you do it, don't say that.
Oh, absolutely. Don't do that.
You made me do it. It's a classic. Um,
Yep.
but there's we've touched a lot about sort of affairs and how that can impact a relationship, but there can be other things too. I mean, sometimes like financial situations for a start, or stealing. I mean, I know I know other parents that have, maybe they have a child that has an addiction problem, and sometimes things are stolen. How
Yeah.
often, how many second chances do you give there? Well, I'm a mother. I mean, I don't think there's a limit to chances that you give your children, for me personally. But it doesn't mean that you leave your checkbook hanging around, or your handbag, or whatever it is. You can give your child as many chances as you want, and as I say, for me, I can't even see there would be a limit on it. But when you've been violated, again, it's a violation. Somebody has abused your trust in them by stealing from you, and this can happen in other things. It can happen in friendships where somebody's lent you money and they haven't paid you back, or there's many partnerships, business partnerships, where these things go on. But again, it's the same principles. It's the same thing of you can you don't you open the door again, but you also are very wary of allowing that person too far in until they've regained, as you say, that trust. You don't let them have access to the contents of your house if you think that they have an addiction problem, and you might come home and they've sold something or stolen some jewelry or money or a TV or whatever it is now that people sell. But it's that with that second chance, there has to come healthy boundaries, which we talk
Absolutely.
about constantly.
Yeah. That's final piece. Actually, I want to speak from the other side for a second, because the thing is, one of the biggest, and this is what happened to me a couple of times, where I realized I'd messed up, I'd effed up, for being polite, honest, would have been broadcast, made a big mistake, and then basically went to the person in Indeed and basically said, I realized I screwed up on a second chance, wanted to have a do over, or whatever what I was using. Oftentimes, what's happened, what surprises me, is that they didn't notice.
Mm-hmm.
It's been such an interesting place, because they're looking at me going like, "What do you mean? I didn't even, I didn't notice anything happened." So it's almost like a relief, but at the same time, it's almost like, how aware is this person after all? Because I'm aware of what I did or didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
So being on the other side of it, where sometimes it works that I become, or the person who's asking for a second chance is ahead of the game, where the person who they, I want to say violate is the wrong word, where they didn't keep agreement with the other person, becomes more ahead of the game. That to me is a good sign. It means you're doing the work, and also means that you're willing to change your way of being. You're not being oblivious and unkind to your partner or to that person.
Yeah.
So
You know,
yes, sorry.
well, what you're bringing up, which is what we always keep getting back to too, is it's the relationship you have with yourself. So
Oh yeah,
it doesn't matter if another person has noticed or not. You're being in integrity with yourself.
there
So
you go.
you feel good when you have, like I had a situation this morning. I had said one thing to one sister, and then I spoke to another sister who informed me that what I'd said had hurt the other sister inadvertently, and it wasn't even so. I had relayed information. I had relayed information thinking it was going to make her feel better. I didn't realize she was going to focus on the part that actually took it in the other way. But my point is, it was wonderful to be able to say, "Oh, thank you. Oh my God, I never knew she would receive it that way, because that was so not the intention. I was trying to actually give her this really lovely message." So then I called the other sister to say, "This is actually, I'm not taking back what I shared, but I shared it because of this part, and you're sort of focusing over here." And she goes, and she was like, "Oh God, thank you so much for calling me." She goes, "You're right. I see now. I see that I haven't been focusing on that part. I just immediately gone over here." So I'm just saying there are these little things that we're all innocent in it. Nobody's intention was bad whatsoever, but I felt so good that I was, instead of being defensive and being like, "Well, it's not what I said, and I didn't mean it that way," I was just like, "Hang on a minute, let me call the other sister back and clean up here a bit." And so it's the relationship you have with yourself, which is ultimately why we come clean, why we take responsibility. It's all for
Yeah,
ourselves and
absolutely. I love
people too, but we have to live with ourselves in the end. That's the point.
it's always. I mean, yeah, we do keep going back to that. I mean, it's like to thine own self be true is that real choice point we have to put ourselves first. Because one of the things also in this is that we have this tendency, and we talk about this many, many times in the early episodes, about putting the other person before us, being so codependent. But to really honor ourselves and make choices that support who we are can have ripple effects around the people around us. And those second chances that we've either asked for or have been asked of can be just like a permission to step to a new or higher level, step into a new game, a new paradigm, as you said it, like a new relationship from the one before. So this is not a light topic. It's a really good one to talk about.
Yeah. And you know what it is? I'd like to finish off on this last one is give yourself
Sure.
give yourself a second chance as well.
Oh yes, God, yes.
We just beat the hell out of ourselves and replay something we did when we were younger or something we did yesterday. But sometimes things that we did in our past that we regret, we like to remind ourselves. We like to just say, "Yes, remember when you did
Yeah,
that?" And
actually, yeah,
just to realize that we are so gracious with other people. We can be so forgiving and accepting and understanding, and we say, "Oh, I'm human too. I make some mistakes too." But how many times do we really, really, really honor that and really actually say, "It's okay that you make. We know you make mistakes. It's great that you're humble and you fess up to it." But do
yeah.
you really, really honestly give yourself a second chance and take yourself off the hook for that?
I I just want a quick story just to finish up because on that exact note is I'm not sure I shared this in that show before or not. I know I shared it somewhere. I had received a an email from somebody that was prospecting, like a business email, that was oblivious to who I was and what I was about. And I kind of became reactive to that and sent an email back that wasn't very pretty, to say the least. And thankfully, I was working with somebody who gave me some feedback on this, like, because I shared with them because it was very sarcastic, very funny. Because being English is kind of easy to be sarcastic, second language, etc. So I sent it back, and the thing is that after I sent it, I couldn't fix it; it was already gone. But I could send a second email, which was like a do-over, a second chance request that I sent to the person saying, what I said earlier. I really want to apologize for my language and all the stuff I wanted to say. Was second chance because I really caught it early. I never heard back from her.
Mm-hmm.
But the funny thing is, I got an email from her yesterday,
Oh, wow.
oblivious to but nothing about what happened before. So I sent an email back saying, "Did you read the emails from before? Just want to see what happened to communication." But the thing I want to say is that my self awareness, or should say, my informed self awareness from my friend, to send a second email really took me out of my guilt and self recrimination I was going through.
Mm-hmm.
So I absolutely let myself off the hook and really became, in a way, lighthearted about the whole thing because I realized what I sent the second time totally, for me, erased the first one. Now, she may take offense at the first one and not let it read the second one. That's not my job.
Yes.
That's the other part, is not taking it personally what she thinks, but to take for myself personally what I did. And that's the thing I think is important to recognize, that we can clean up our own act and give ourselves a second chance.
Exactly. All right, I got another show idea here. Cleaning up your side of the street.
Oh, okay.
That's one coming up. Why don't we
Okay.
clean up our side of the street?
Yeah. And not wait for the other person. Yes.
All right. Well, that was a great one again. Thank you so much, Barry. Have a
Thank
great
you,
week,
Jill.
everybody, and we will see you next week. Thank
Take care
you.
of yourself.
Bye-bye.
We trust you enjoyed this episode and invite you to share this with your friends and loved ones. In fact, please subscribe to our Relationship Mastery podcast. That way you'll get each new episode fresh and shiny as soon as it is released. We'd love to hear from you as well. So go ahead and enter your questions and comments at relationshipmastery.show. Take good care. We will connect with you in our next episode of Relationship Mastery.